Cool. Well, thanks for coming through to our online BEDucator and Consent Ambassador program for the regional Burning Man. Saguaro, man. Almost forgot which one we were doing. Talk about Burning Man so much. So this is the Bureau of Erotic Discourse. Some of you may have heard of our camp. Some of you may not have. We work with emergency services at Burning Man, and what we do is promote the 11th principle of consent. So with AZ Burners, it is officially the 11th principle, and I believe this is their first year rolling it out. So consent has had a really big focus with your AZ Burner leads and with them reaching out to us. So it's been really exciting just to see people really caring about this and you guys here being here in the meeting. So yeah, what we do with the BEDucator program, we're going to start more so with kind of what the BEDucator program is. Hopefully you guys have already gone to beducator.teachable.com. So you've watched through the videos and you've kind of gotten an idea of what the program is like. So it does go off of consent being the principle. And then the BEDucators themselves are different from the consent ambassadors who are volunteers at GATE for Saguaro Man. So the BEDucator program, it starts off with educating yourself on what consent is and why it's important. And then you try and get into a meeting with your camp leads to define what your consent policy is, because you know your campmates better than we ever could. There's 80,000 people that go to Burning Man, and those are your buddies. Those are your campmates. They might be fresh faces or they might be your best friends. So you guys are going to create your own consent policy. That's the idea for Big Burn. When it comes to this regional Burning Man, we have some bed buddy systems where we just get into a text and kind of do support and get more immediate answers. Some people have just adopted ours. So if that's something that you guys would need to do because it's going to be burned here in like 4 days, then you're totally welcome to. Some people are just printing it and then they're putting it in a paper protector and emailing it out to their camp to show like, hey, this is a focus on what we would like to do. So I'm going to pause right there because that was long-winded. Does anybody have any questions on the BEDucator program with what the consent policy is and trying to get that going with your camp? Okay.
Not questions so much, but just kind of like, my other camp lead and I went through that together and like had a meeting to talk about like what our idea was for what we want to do for our like consent policy. And we actually are like printing out, like we kind of added a little bit of our own, like our own flavor to it, right? But we were printing out what you guys had written up for like the what, where, when, why, and all of that. And then we're sending it out to our group mates, but we're also having a meeting with everybody once we get onto the playa, just to kind of like go over it and get everyone's feedback. So then we can all kind of have like a plan if there is a consent violation. Because I feel like that's really empowering, just to kind of know like, okay, this is what we can do in this situation. But yeah, so far it's gone really well. And I really appreciate the training because it's really empowering, honestly.
Awesome. That's really, really good to hear. And when we got your email, it was kind of like one of those, someone went through it, just watched the videos and set up the meeting and did it all on their own. Awesome. Like it's really cool to hear your experience with that. And it is going well just to have something set up so you're not caught with your pants down.
Yeah, exactly.
Best phrase to use in this situation, but
yeah, just I mean, even like just I've found like working with my other camp lead, like, hey, we're not gonna necessarily put it in writing like what a consent violation looks like, but just like kind of some ideas for our campmates, like if this happens, we have an idea of what we can do. Like we have a generalized SOP, so to speak.
Awesome.
And I feel like that's really helpful. So
yeah, and it's pre-planning. It's safety third, but it's still safety, right?
Exactly. Hope for the best, plan for the worst, but still have a good time.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
That's a fuck yeah in our book.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chelsea.
So, yeah.
Would love to hear more about how that goes at Burn and then any afterthoughts that you have.
Oh yeah, absolutely. If we're going to be like taking notes and stuff, because yeah, I realize this is new, like in general as a program, and we're also a brand new theme camp. So we have a lot that we're learning as we go.
Amazing. Okay, has anyone else done what Chelsea's done? Because that's actually really impressive that Chelsea was able to go through without basically reaching out for much help. Has anyone gotten close to where Chelsea's at, or was kind of confused after watching the videos?
No, I went through them as well, and it was pretty clear in all honesty.
Yeah, thanks for watching the program and
Sure.
educating yourself. Okay. Can I ask if anybody would participate in basically what it looks like when you set up that meeting and us go over together why consent is important? Like, is that something that you guys would like to come off mute and participate in, even if there's like just a couple of us?
I'm into trying. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty easy.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's basically like the BEDucator program, but it just gives us more of the experience of going through it together. And it's super simple. So this is the portion where I say you've already set up and now we're a camp and we're all the camp leads. So we're just going to open up a quick doc. It's really easy when someone can follow along as you're writing and typing at the same time. So if I'm the BEDucator, and I'm asking our group, why is consent important? I'm just going to record what you guys have to say. So anybody can shout it out. Why is consent important?
So that we can all feel like a team.
Yeah. We're all, it's safety, right? Helping people feel safe by understanding their agency is acknowledged and respected.
Because you can't
Love
radically
yourself.
express yourself without consent.
But also to help create trust.
Mm.
And to know what other people's boundaries are.
To deepen intimacy. Good one.
Really good
Thank you.
answers.
And to create trust.
Great.
Yeah, that's twice in there, but okay.
So important we had to say it twice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I'm sorry.
Exactly.
Her screen, her font is so tiny, I can't read it. There we go.
Now I could read it. I'm blind.
Now bring your glasses.
Oh yeah. Here we go.
You need those things, Momo.
Nerd.
Yeah, but you're legally blind without them.
Legally shouldn't be driving without them. Yes. So these are really, really good answers. So why is consent important? So that we can all feel like a team. Safety helping people feel safe, knowing agency is accepted. You can't radically accept without consent. It creates trust. It creates trust twice. We had to say it twice. To know other people's boundaries and to deepen intimacy, which, hey, I think there's a lot of, with empowering the no in such a big yes culture. In our last meeting, this was kind of like our group conversation was, some people don't know that it's okay to say no in such a, just say yes more often. And if you're brand new to burn, whether it's Saguaro Man or Big Burn, sometimes it needs to be stated going into this brand new culture, like you're still allowed to be empowered to say your no. But a big part of like deepening your intimacy is communication. And if anybody here is married or has been in a long-term relationship, communication is key when it comes
Yes.
to creating that trust, is being honest with each other. Plus, sex might get a little bit better when you actually ask for what you want.
Or are clear about what you don't want.
Right. Exactly.
Absolutely.
Very good points. So if we're going through why and then who can practice consent?
Everyone.
Great. And since the BEDucator program, I feel like this wasn't very clear in the actual videos and training when it comes to, say, our incident reporting, this who portion, if there is a consent complaint that pops up, another big part of this question is who receives the complaints?
Mm.
That's a harder one, right? So when it comes to our camps here, if you're the BEDucator, that doesn't mean that you need to be the person who is receiving the complaints. With BED, like the Bureau of Erotic Discourse in our camp, we as the camp leads, we do receive the complaints because we feel like that's our duty as the camp leads, not just to be there to kind of lead and charge the camp, but when things go wrong, we're there to listen to other people and to actually have the discourse around whatever the complaint is. It doesn't matter what it is. So one thing that we do in BED, at least this is at least for BED. One thing that we do in BED to hold ourselves accountable is we have a camp culture lead. This is a really fun position. So you're going around, you're creating culture, but then again, this is probably, I think, the hardest position when it comes to consent complaints or just complaints in general, because the camp culture lead in our camp, what they do is they receive complaints about the board members. So they willingly put themselves in a position to receive complaints, say if it's against Danger Kitten or myself, to approach the board and then talk about it, where people may have not had a pathway to talk about something that we needed to be held accountable for. So we have found that this is very, very powerful, especially when it comes to leadership. So you guys don't have to follow that exactly, but that's something that we've kind of put our heads down for a few years to see if it works. And I know that's the harder question. Do you guys have any kind of thoughts or feedback on it?
Yeah, I like that idea. I mean, I think just kind of as an example, kind of like what we did, I think we're going to talk to our camp members and see like who's comfortable being a consent ambassador. And then, like if they need help or assistance, they can, come find either myself or my other camp lead.
Awesome.
And then like if we need help, we can come find camp leads at BED. So it's
Great.
like just kind of, again, empowering seems to be my my buzzword today. But it's very empowering to know that there's that support system. So it's not just like, because I feel like, at least in my experience, like hearing about a consent violation can be really isolating, because it's like, I feel like I have to handle this, right? Like, and I don't know like who to talk to about it, right? So like knowing that there's that support structure it eases some of the anxiety of maybe talking about some of these harder topics, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and having a partner in this can be really helpful, because you do need emotional support a lot of times, and you need someone to talk to about it. But usually there's a concern about confidentiality, and you don't want to just be spreading stuff around. So it's good to have a team in place so that you can work together and give each other emotional support, and also just have different reflections or a different opinion about maybe a conversation that you've had with the person. It can be really helpful having different perspectives. And in that, when you're selecting that person, for us, we found it's good to think about like, who is someone who is seen as very trustworthy and is someone who is approachable. And with having two people, you can kind of make that more of a diverse group of two, so that maybe if there's someone who doesn't feel comfortable, like with a cis man, maybe there can be somebody who's not that, who's also part of it. Or anyone, it's great to have as much diversity in these sort of things as possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Love that. So the next portion, if we're just going through very simple why, who, what.
Hey,
what
actually, I have a
is-
question.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Who are the camp leads at BED?
Danger Kitten, myself, we have Todd Vickers and Brian Reel.
Okay, and you're saying that the camp leads are different than the board?
The camp leads are the board.
Camp leads are the board. Okay, but you're saying that we can talk to anyone else in the camp leads about other people also on the board?
Right. Yeah. So
If they were to, if something was to happen interpersonally that like didn't feel right.
Yes. So
Okay.
say if in camp, someone needed to make a complaint to the camp leads, AKA the board members, that would be the group of 4 that I just stated. But say if you had a problem with me, you would go to the camp culture lead, because it might be intimidating to go to the camp leads. So this is what this person does, is basically approach myself, approach me and the rest of the board stating that there is a complaint and that we need to address it to hold accountability for my actions, DK's actions, Todd Vickers' actions, and Brian Reel's actions.
Okay.
Yeah, so the camp culture lead is a camp lead, but they're not a board member in charge of the organization. And so at Burning Man, we have camp leads that are like, you know, the kitchen lead or camp culture lead or LNT lead. And then you have like the board members that are overseeing the organization. At Saguaro Man, it'll be Momo and I will both be there. The other board members live out of state, and so they won't be at Saguaro Man.
Did that kind of clear it up?
Mhm.
Cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
we
it was
call
good.
ourselves bedheads. We got a bunch of weird, cute acronyms. We also have camp leads in training. And if you were to take that acronym.
Yeah.
Excellent. Did anybody else have questions on the who portion? Mm-hmm. What'd you say, Stuart?
So sometimes they can be hard to find.
Yes, yes. So true.
Oh no. Oh no.
We'll have a camp meeting on how to locate.
Right.
All right, thank you. I'll be there.
I like
Demonstrations. Oh, funny. All right. Well, when it comes to say a camp lead, or I'm sorry, a camp meeting with demonstrations, and we're saying we need to have consent. What is consent?
I think it's oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. Permission.
Clarity
An
about what
agreement.
is or is not acceptable for someone else. Agreement.
A revocable agreement, maybe I should have said.
Revocable.
Great
I think
answers.
again, just like respecting, like acknowledging and respecting of somebody else's agency.
Perfect.
A person's like status with their boundaries.
That is with their boundaries, because it can change, right? The revocable. I'm also a terrible speller, so if I spell things incorrectly, sorry.
We don't care.
You know. Anything else on what is consent?
Well, you know, I liked in the training that it was a verb also. It's like
Mm.
granting this.
It's a foundation for connection. Because like, you know, if you don't, if somebody comes over and starts interacting with you and you weren't really like expecting to be like interacted with, then that's not really like a good basis for connection.
Yep.
True.
Oh, Nick, were you trying to say something? You're on mute. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So what is consent? Consent's a verb, something that you do. Permission, clarity, what is or is not acceptable for someone. It's a revocable agreement, respecting and acknowledging someone's agency, a person's status with their boundaries, a foundation for connection. Sounds pretty good to me. Feel like that's all covered there. It's revocable. It doesn't mean that you have permission just because someone gives it to you once, and they might change their mind later. Maybe one day you like fish and the other day you don't. It's also not just about sex, right? It's not physical touch, although when we think of consent, like we're trying to reduce the number of unwanted touching that goes on at events where people are potentially getting high or drinking a lot of alcohol, but it could be, say, alcohol itself. Like if someone does not drink, we don't want to push that on other people or drug somebody's drink, right? It sounds silly when you say it out loud, like don't do that, but it happens. So we have to define exactly what is consent when it comes to if there's a consent complaint, and we have to have the discourse around what is consent and where was the line crossed, what's a teachable moment.
Or like Aaron said in that training, food for us,
Right.
folks who don't eat meat, that can be a consent issue.
Right? Not hungry, super full. Why are you still bugging me about this? Eat
the bacon.
Yeah, vegan. Don't want to
Yeah.
eat the animals. Personal choice.
Yeah.
I
Well,
feel
I know
like
I think it's other things. I mean, I know this is kind of a weird thing when you talk about, the different kinds of chemicals, but like I love smoking pot, but I literally am allergic to tobacco, and I've had people handing me a joint. Oh, it's a joint. I'm like, and instantly I'm having a reaction, a medical reaction to something that I knew I didn't want, and somebody else put it in there for whatever because they want a blunt, but that's what they do, and that is again one of those things you didn't tell somebody, and now it's not just I don't like to taste it. It's actually could be medically inducing something serious.
Yeah.
I think the same thing with so I'm also do backpacking guiding. When you talk about the food, that's the same thing. Now I've gotten really hypersensitive to asking people about their nut versus lagoon allergies versus gluten. I'm like, because I actually had an EpiPen incident, and I'm like, okay, but we always ask, ahead of time because we don't want that, but people didn't even know. So even you're right, something like that. Hey, by the way, there's gluten in here, there's nuts in here, or something like that could be pretty serious to somebody, especially if they're not in their right mind, they're on drugs, they're high, and you're trying to offer them something that they would be allergic to.
Super good point, and really good examples for things like that as well when it comes to chemicals and just food allergies itself. Like
I've actually gotten really scary about food allergies since I started guiding, because I had no idea how serious it was for actually a lot of people. And I've actually had a couple people who didn't know it was so serious for them until they found out accidentally, because we fed them something. Oh, I normally don't eat that way. Well, okay, so you're not allergic, and you have it, and they had a EpiPen, reaction.
wow.
And so people may not even know either.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you said it perfectly. Like we always ask when it comes to food, like it's the same thing when it comes to someone's physical space, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Right, exactly.
great example. Okay, do we have any more questions on what is consent? So where can we practice consent?
Everywhere.
Everywhere. Oops, one. Everywhere.
I think one thing you want to chime in on this, and I know you're probably going to talk about, the consent as far as somebody wanting something from you, you have to get consent to do that. But I think the bigger thing is, and I see this a lot with people, because I don't give a fuck about anybody except me. In the sense that I don't care if what I don't like hurts your feelings. Hey, I don't want to do that. I don't like that. I don't want to eat that. Fuck you and your blunt. You can have whatever you want, but some people are like not willing to say the opposite. Go the opposite direction. Does that make sense? Am I making sense right now? Because some people are like, well, I don't want to say no, or I don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. They put all this work in it. I don't give a fuck how long you spent. I'm sorry, I'm cussing, but I don't care how long you spent rolling the blunt, making that food. I'm not gonna do it, and I'm not gonna be forced to have my feelings for what you might feel. I don't care how you feel. This is how I am. I got to protect me first, without having to try to protect somebody else's feelings. This is not about somebody else's feelings. This is about you. Who gives a fuck about everybody else? Your feelings come first.
I love that.
Right.
So,
You gotta put your
Okay.
gas mask on first before you can help someone else, right?
so
Oh,
like,
that's
who
what
could-
that's exactly what I was gonna say. You don't
Yeah.
go put everybody else's gas mask. You're gonna be fucking dead. Put your own oxygen mask on, and then you can worry about somebody else. Maybe.
I love that you said that because it's so true. So who can practice consent? And you said it, me. I can practice consent.
Yeah.
And you could be the person to give either what we call, hey, how's it going? Or a teachable moment. Not everybody does, like you said, like they don't feel like they're strong enough. So where consent
Yep.
ambassadors in your your camp leads come in is to support people that maybe don't feel like they are confident enough to verbalize. A teachable moment is what we call it. And that is verbalizing the boundary. And so we're here, like, I feel like a lot of people who come into these types of trainings, they're like, we want to be advocates for anybody that doesn't feel like they can use their voice. And if you see that somebody is kind of feeling a little uncomfortable, DK is actually going to be talking about this at a lead talk. We call it the, hey, how's it going? And it's an unassuming way to just get more information. So if your spidey senses are telling you that someone is feeling uncomfortable and they don't know how to use their words, that's something where you can step aside, give them support. And if they need help with a teachable moment, like giving someone a teachable moment, just, hey, like the way that you touched me makes me feel very uncomfortable. I have autism, what have you, whatever the situation is. That's kind of what we're here to do, is provide that support.
Yeah.
And talk about it, have the discourse like we are right now. So really, really good point. Thanks for bringing that up.
If I could add on to that, actually. So I actually decided to make this my volunteer position this year because that's that me being allowed to say no and standing up for what I don't like is something that I'm like actively working on learning. Like especially this year. So yeah, it's been really like empowering to be like, oh my God, I can say no too. Like awesome. And I can say it without, if it does hurt somebody's feelings, well, you're responsible for your feelings, right? Like if I don't
Right.
want to do that thing and you're going to try to guilt me for it, like that's asking me to put my feelings and my well-being second. And I'm sorry, I forgot your name, but just like you were talking about a minute ago, like my feelings come first, like I got to take care of me. Fuck other people's feelings in that situation, right?
Yeah. And like, we didn't even put me as an answer as we were going through this on who can practice consent. Like it's everyone, as in usually people, and I'm guilty of this. I think everyone else, it's sometimes difficult to put the mask on yourself first. But if that's something that we're practicing, this is a practice. Like we don't always get it right either. Like it's something that we have to continuously practice and get better at. And one of the things that we've started saying is we don't always get it right the first time, but we're going to try and we're going to do.
Yeah.
Love that you said that too. So happy that you're here, like learning with us and helping us develop this.
Yeah, thank you. It's great.
Oh.
I'm really happy.
So like another where we can practice consent is when we're alone, by thinking about what we're going to need when we're in a certain situation, so that we can already have some of the language or like really important things planned to mention.
That's really great. I think when we're alone too is a good time to think about how does a yes feel in our body and how does a no feel? When you have that feeling, what does that feel like? And identifying it for you so that you can really firmly say your yes and your no. Because that's a really important step. And some people don't know, and they are just feeling pressured to say yes or no based on the situation or other things. So identifying like, what is your physical response to a yes or a no can really help you. It's like tuning into what is my gut telling me.
I love that. It's a really good meeting. Really like what you guys are having to say. Like, it's interesting. Good. So that could go like almost, I was going to say, when can we practice consent? And when we're alone, that's an awesome one. I don't think I've heard that one before. Have we talked about that, DK?
I don't know. I mean, I've talked about knowing about the yes and whatnot, but no, I don't, I think that's a really important one to add to it.
Yeah.
I like that. It's like not judging yourself so harshly for feeling your feelings and like just allowing those to be what they are. I really like that. Like when you're alone, practicing that.
Amazing. Yeah. See, you guys are helping develop this whole program just by having the discourse. Like, so thank you. It's super sick feedback. I love it. And like we'll probably like adopt this and put it in there because that's true. It's we're thinking about other people. At least I know most of us in this group are probably thinking about other people when it's like we want consent to be great and out there for the culture, but it starts with us, right? Like in the training, there was Aaron who started talking about it starts with me. And I usually will put myself like on the back burner before someone else who is my friend. So this is a cool conversation for myself personally too.
Mhm.
Great. Well, this is really cool. And I'm going to send this out to us. So in the BEDucator program, when you do this with your camp leads, either for Big Burn or just to create your own camp policy, what we did is we took all of our words and then condensed it down to what our camp policy is in just 2 paragraphs. This one's specifically for Saguaro Man. So if you are the only camp lead at your camp and you would like a copy of this, we can send it out to you. I think we did send you one. It said for Burning Man, and then someone corrected us. So this one says Saguaro Man. If you want this one specifically to print or to email out, more than welcome to. But yeah, no, this is really good. And like, this is literally what the meeting looks like. So it's kind of a powerful one. It's really fun.